Dawn bled over a scrub-flat strip outside Tizimin, Yucatan, when a battered Cessna 208 Caravan ground to a halt. Right windshield crazed, starboard main strut folded under. Inside the cabin, blood spray across the glare shield, cord burns on the bulkhead, charts plastered to torn insulation, and shrink-wrapped bricks of U.S. currency that had burst from ripped cargo netting and skidded the length of the bay. The manifest said avionics spares. Reality: $5.3 million in Cartel payroll cash that was supposed to be airborne another 1,000 kilometers. No guards, no pilot on scene. Just heat shimmer, scrub, and money. Before I walk you through the full story, I just have a small favor to ask. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? It's always amazing to see how far this audience is reaching. 20 minutes later, a white farm-plated panel van eased out of cane cover, back to the wreck, and 3 men in sun-bleached caps moved with calm urgency. Currency bundles vanished into hidden voids and sealed drums. Something else went into a shallow pit under a rotted hangar slab. Diesel coughed. The van rolled. By the time the cartel that owned that cash realized Flight 47 had stopped transmitting, the money was buried, the aircraft was burning, and a hostage negotiation had already begun on cartel radios. 36 hours after touchdown, nobody could say with confidence who controlled the cash, who held the hostage, or who betrayed whom. Quick favor before we roll the full timeline. Hit subscribe, tap like, and tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. That simple thing lets us keep making these deep dive true crime reconstructions about ordinary workers who pull off impossible crimes. The pilot who crawled out of that caravan was Miguel Angel Santos, 34, former Mexican Air Force transport captain. He grew up under the approach lanes in Merida. His father turned wrenches on crop dusters. His mother taught math. His childhood smelled like Avgas and solvent. Miguel went through the Air Force Academy, missed fighters on a vision metric, and was streamed into transports, medevac, hurricane relief, troop lift. Every evaluation tagged the same 2 lines: rigid checklist discipline, improvises well under damage. That mix, procedural brain with field hacks, would later let him steal from a cartel without dying in the first 5 minutes. Money was thin in uniform. Aircraft got cannibalized for parts. Pay slipped. Private, humanitarian charter companies began buying pilot days off duty. One Sinaloa outfit paid triple, cash per diem, fresh fuel. The early loads really were medical relief. Then agricultural pesticides, then sealed crates that clinked like metal, then shrink-wrapped cash pallet film. By the time Miguel admitted to himself he was flying for the Hermanos del Rio cartel, his wife Elena was pregnant, the mortgage was current, and saying no meant explaining to men who solved problems with shovels. Cartel culture scuffed him fast. At a desert strip, a courier rolled in 15 minutes late with payroll. The operations boss stepped forward, said nothing, and shot him in the forehead in front of the flight crew. Lateness is theft. Miguel kept flying, but the shock cut deep. The deeper break came months later when the baby he and Elena had fought to bring to term developed a septic infection. The cartel clinic had antibiotics locked for priority. Paperwork stalled. Their son died. Elena looked at Miguel across a plastic hospital chair and said, "They don't pay you. They rent you." Grief hardened into resolve. If he could not protect his own family inside their system, he would steal enough to walk out of all systems. The score had to be big but feasible. Guns and coke moved under heavy guard. Cash consolidation flights, short internal hops from ranch strips to cartel counting houses, ran light because everything in between was friendly. One of those loops, tagged in internal flight notes as Flight 47, moved once a month. 6 rural pickups: Chiapas, Tabasco, Veracruz, Campeche, Yucatan, then north toward Sonora, where laundering runs staged. Utility turboprops rotated. Caravan, PC-12, sometimes a tired King Air. Always one trusted pilot, one armed escort, load hidden behind false panels and bogus manifests, machine parts, avionics, medicine. Miguel flew 47 often enough to memorize leg fuel burns, comm check intervals, low radar shelves where terrain occluded coverage, which strip bosses counted loads, which wave signatures, and which ground crewmen smoked long enough to leave a ramp unwatched. He started a notebook that looked like doodles. Times, altitudes, fuel uplifts against declared weight, SATCOM ping gaps, what days manifests came typed versus handwritten, which escorts drank, who gambled. He overlaid old military charts and found an abandoned World War II auxiliary field at Tisamin. 4,800 feet of cracked concrete hidden under scrub, no beacon, no tower, reachable by cane service road and outside routine patrol sweeps. He hiked it twice, claiming to chase wild boar, paced usable pavement with a laser tape, chalk-marked pothole rims in IR paint, and pre-dug a test trench under a rotted hangar slab to see how deep the concrete ran. Perfect diversion field. He could not move 5 million alone. He pulled in 2 people and told each only what that person needed. Roberto Beto Salazar had grown up with Miguel, now built rally trucks in Progreso, and was months from losing his shop to supplier debt. Beto reinforced a white Nissan panel van with a double skin, welded in a floor void sized to hold 4 55-gallon drums, ran an ice tank coolant loop to flatten heat signature under drone scan, plumbed quick disconnect wheel hubs in case tires picked up tar or trackers, and wired a dead switch battery cut so the van could die harmlessly if they needed to ditch. Diego Cavazos was a municipal radio and CCTV tech whose daughter's leukemia bills were crushing him. He was the electronics brain. Diego sourced a GPS spoof board that plugged inline at the caravan's maintenance diagnostic port. He wrote a tiny SATCOM ghost script. When triggered, outgoing position packets froze at the last good fix while true GPS coordinates logged to an encrypted SD card. After a preset timer or manual reset, the feed resumed, making a short gap look like weather shadow. Diego also cloned ID lanyards, built a narrowband RF jammer to smother cheap trackers, and pulled laminate blanks from a subcontract printer Del Rio used for lesser airfields. Miguel promised each man $200,000. Neither heard the real cargo estimate. They rehearsed in crumbs. Miguel loosened a SATCOM connector on a maintenance hop to time how long dispatch tolerated lost pings when HF voice remained good, about 11 minutes. Diego injected millisecond GPS offsets into recorded test feeds to see if ops auditors flagged altitude scatter. They did not. Beto ran Canefield side roads at night lights out to clock transit times. Miguel planted a GoPro in a cargo bulkhead on an unrelated run to watch how Victor Reyes, the escort who rotated often and liked to drink, handled boredom. Victor nodded off before Merida. Weak link noted. Execution night landed on Valentine's Day 2024. Because weather was mild, multiple strips were staffed, and Cartel focus sat on party money. Aircraft, Caravan Tail X BLDR, registration paper fake. Load, $5.3 million in mostly U.S. hundreds and fifties, vacuum sealed and pallet wrapped. 11 sample kilos bagged for barter. Manifest typed as avionics crates. Escort, last minute swap. Victor. Good news because Miguel had mapped his habits. Bad news because, just before the Gulf leg, Victor leaned back and said the boss wanted eyes on hands. Too many questions at Merida last month, he said, and rested his palm near his .45. Abort meant instant suspicion. Fake mechanical meant search. There was only the cockpit. When Victor bent over a paper nav strip to remark an ETA, Miguel looped the elastic emergency oxygen hose twice around Victor's throat and drove backward with everything he had. The caravan yawed. Victor slammed the side window. The pistol fired. The windshield crazed outward. Pressure whistled. Charts exploded. 90 seconds of claws, elbows, headbutts, and cord. Victor booted the emergency hatch. Slipstream grabbed him. Miguel clung. The hose slipped. Victor tore free and vanished in spray 8,000 feet over the Gulf. Miguel was bleeding across one eye and half-deaf from the shot, but the aircraft flew. Muscle memory from medevac saved them. He trimmed, leveled, throttled, scanned engine temps, and jammed Diego's ghost dongle inline. Outbound SATCOM froze at its last good coordinate. He killed mode C and switched the transponder to fail passive. He banked shallow and dropped under terrain cover toward Tisamin. Cellular networks blinked. He set his phone to a dead loop so Cartel dispatch would chalk him to Gulf dead zones. The clock on detection started. If nobody forced a radio cross-check, he had a window. Landing at Tisamin was ugly. Crosswind quartering, right gear wounded. He planted long, the strut collapsed, the plane ground looped and stopped upright only because the scrub was forgiving. Cargo nets burst, bundles rolled. Beto rolled the van from cane cover exactly on time. Diego threw up the jammer bubble. They were wrist deep in shrink wrap when Miguel's muted phone woke with a cartel text. The image was Elena, wrists zip-tied, tape across her mouth, bruise high on one cheekbone. The message read, "We know. 5.3 plus 1 penalty. 36 hours. Try clever equals slow." Timestamp was 8 minutes after Victor's vitals would have gone flat. Someone inside the network had flagged the flight as soon as SATCOM froze. Maybe a second aircraft had eyes. Maybe Diego had already talked to someone. Miguel heard how fast Diego started explaining signal theory and knew the electronics man had outside contacts. No time to unravel it. They split fast. Real cash went into oil drums lined with desiccant and sunk beneath the hollow hangar slab Miguel had sampled weeks before. Decoy duffels got newspaper cores topped and bottomed with real strap bills and just enough weight to pass a flip test. 11 real bricks were salted among the fakes to buy seconds. Trackers were smashed, except for 2 Miguel kept alive and later fed into a false trail. Wheels were swapped, the van's coolant loop charged, burn gel smeared on the caravan's fuel vents for later fire. The cartel designated a ransom meet at a ranch clearing outside Zitzantun. Deliver the full 5.3 million plus $1 million fine and take Elena out alive. Miguel knew the operations boss who would run the trade. He was the same man who shot the late courier. Odds of a clean exchange were near zero, but staying away guaranteed a body. Miguel loaded the decoys and went. Floodlights lit a corral. Elena stood tied to a post. 15 visible gunmen, more in trucks. The ops boss waved, smiling. Miguel stepped out with empty hands and asked to see her breathe. Boss thumbed bundles. Weight pleased him. A verification man cut deeper and hit newsprint. He barked. Miguel gave Beto the signal. The van engine revved. Diesel roar drowned the first suppressor burst. Miguel dove sideways. Beto's short-barrel AK hammered a line across the front rank. 2 men dropped. Muzzle flashes strobed. The air filled with grit. Elena hit dirt. Miguel crawled, cutting zip ties with a boot knife as rounds popped fence rails overhead. Ops boss dragged Elena by the hair and jammed a pistol to her jaw. Miguel slammed him shoulder first. The 2 rolled in mud. A knife flashed. Miguel locked a blood choke across carotid and held as the man kicked, then went slack. He took the pistol. Diego screamed over comms that federal tactical units were inbound in 2 minutes. A truth of convenience. He had tipped the DEA to cover himself. Beto rammed the corral gate. Plating soaked small caliber fire. They blasted onto the ranch road with 2 trucks in chase. Miguel fired out the back window. Beto slewed through irrigation cuts and pre-mapped cane rows wide enough for the van. One pursuing truck hit caltrops and rolled. Another lost its radiator. The third broke off when a stray round shattered its windshield. Back at Tisamin, they hauled the drums, swapped decoys for real bundles, sloshed Avgas, lit the wrecked caravan, and painted both Del Rio and a rival cartel tag on burnt metal to seed a faction war. Then they ran Plan C, a shallow draft fiberglass panga. Beto had sunk under mangrove on a tidal flat track, time for high water. They shoved off with Elena sedated, cash hidden, and phones dead. Minutes later, federal TAC vans based on Diego's tip hit the hangar. State police rolled in behind to poach seizures. Del Rio reinforcements, reading smoke and signal chatter, arrived angry. Somebody opened fire. Radios cross-talked. Agencies shot at each other. Cartel gunmen shot at both. When the smoke cleared, the caravan was ash. Duffels on site were all decoys, and no pilot was found. Diego told the DEA the pilot had been killed at the ranch. No body, no confirmation. The Zitzantun incident file ballooned and then cooled. Miguel, Elena, and Beto rode the panga through mangrove cuts at high tide, idled along tidal flats below radar, swapped engines and registration plates at a fish camp, and crossed the Belize line before the coastal patrol shift changed. At a stilt village, a cousin swapped them into a Collectivo truck. Over the next 48 hours, they rotated vehicles, burned clothing, and cut hair. Elena's wrists healed in a jungle clinic that never asked for last names. Diego, trying to buy immunity and chemotherapy for his daughter, leaned into the DEA. He surrendered the Ghost Dongle Code, partial Del Rio flight grids, names of 2 corrupt customs inspectors, and a map of lesser strips. He swore under oath that Miguel died at the ranch firefight. When bodies failed to match, he lost credibility, but his intel lived. Beto peeled off to Costa Rica under forged Argentine papers, reopened a small off-road fabrication bay, and never filed taxes under his own name again. Miguel moved the money in grains, never in shovels. Large deposits trigger flags. Physical cash bulk is its own enemy. He cut the drums apart and fed bricks into commercial cargo streams. Frozen seafood exports out of Belize carried strap rolls and hollow foam lids. Used aircraft parts cabins shipped to Guatemala hid vacuum bricks inside wing ribs. Farm implement pipes bound for Honduras carried PVC sleeves stuffed with currency. He bought scrap gold small lots in rural Mexico, melted and resold in Panama, where metal trade paperwork masked provenance. School tuition for Elena's credential move posted in round $4,000 cash bundles spaced months apart, below thresholds. He overpaid customs bonds in cash and took refunds by wire. He reported modest taxable profit through a Belize cold storage cooperative, so regulators saw something ordinary. Within 2 years, most of the $5.3 million had been transformed into equity stakes scattered through low-visibility freight, crop, and charter outfits. A Guatemalan bush charter that really does fly aid and sometimes other things. A Honduran coffee exporter with volatile cash seasonality that hides injections. A Belize cold store that sees lots of cash from fishing boats. A Panamanian forwarder that books mixed humanitarian cargo. Miguel became a fee-for-cover broker. The pilot, other small crews paid to mask their own cash as produce or parts through routes he controlled. Margins stacked, percentages accrued. Spreadsheet Kingpin, not movie Kingpin. Quiet made him durable. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notification so you never miss the next one.